All right. So I'm trying this now for actually the third time today. I skipped 2 months of live streaming. And so I said I was going to do one a month for a coffee talk for a while until I come back with the book that I'm working on. And I'm not ready for the book yet. So I was trying to do one a month. I missed last month. I missed the previous month. So here I am for the month of May, talking about the Alpha and the Omega. Have a little bit of coffee in my mug. It says my favorite color is coffee. You can see that the color of my coffee is potentially more creamy than coffee today. All right, so what I have here is I did this setup so that I could sketch a little bit while I'm talking, and so I'm going to set that up here now so that you'll be able to see. All right, so here's the transition that a while ago when I tried this transition, things went blank everywhere and we ended up not having a video. So now if I have a video outside in the real world and you're able to see that, that's awesome. That's what I'm after. So I was trying to create, so for a moment, for this coffee talk, what I wanted to do was instead of me just talking, I had wanted to share a little bit. And while I'm sharing these thoughts, I was going to sketch. And so sometimes when I'm sketching like this and going and doing this, I'm able to give very coherent thoughts. But then there's other times where I realize that my thoughts are not as coherent as I would like them to be. But right now, in the world that you live in, chances are you've had quite a few changes recently. So in our house, we just had a baby. Her name is Lilius. And Lilius is such a blessing to us. And I am so grateful for everything that God has done in his faithfulness in providing us another little child. And so we are very, very grateful for Lilius. We're grateful for what God has done in providing her to us. And our goal with all of our children, and so right now this is happening again, where I'm concerned that it somehow got stuck on the live stream where you're not getting the video that I'm sending. And I'm not sure how what's going on with that. So I am looking and checking again to see what's going on with this. And I don't see it. All right, let's try over here. Hey, maybe you are seeing what I'm seeing. That would be awesome. Okay. On YouTube at least, it looks like you're updating and keeping up with what I'm seeing. That's great. Over on some of the other ones, I am not positive. So we will go with the fact that it is on YouTube. Okay, it looks like maybe Facebook is also keeping up with it. So after 2 months of not live streaming for my coffee talks, we've still been doing it at church, but I haven't been doing it for coffee talks. I feel like I'm just a wee bit rusty in how I'm doing it, and it's not all functioning quite the way I want it to function. So as I was saying, we have a lot of things change in the world in a short amount of time. And so anytime that we have changes in leadership, anytime we have changes in government, it impacts a lot of things. And so some of us have been, as you know, if you've been following things like what's going on with politics, what's happening with, well, even right now, we just had, there's a new pope that just got put in. And so there's things like that happen where the things that we thought we knew, the things that we thought were in place, are not always the same anymore. And so as a result, the expectation, and this is what I was saying with the last video right here somewhere, is where it actually had cut out so badly that I couldn't finish it. So, and I stopped and restarted. So our expectation, based on common sense and just our past life experience, is that when we see something, so I see a set of events, I can figure out what's going to happen next. And so, for instance, if you have some experience with a bike, and so you see someone riding a bike, you can tell, depending on what trail they're riding on, what is about to happen. If they're going too fast, so not just a bike. cars. I look in the rearview mirror as I'm coming up to a stop. If the car behind me is not stopping fast enough, my mind extrapolates and says, I'm about to get smashed. And so then we try to take evasive action. But so this is the kind of thing that is very helpful in real life. But in the abstract, when we're looking at things that are happening on a world level, it can sometimes get us into all kinds of trouble. And so like you and I will look at what someone else is doing and what something else is happening, and we say, wait a minute, I have seen this before. When we go down this path, here's what's going to happen. And at this point, now please just for a moment go with me on this one. You might be, hey Joe, thanks for joining me today after 2.5 months. We might, after when we look at the world as we know it, as we say, and we see things changing, we will look at it and be like, okay, so I clearly am aware that when these things happen, then this is what happens next. And so we look at someone else's life and we say, well, when I did what they're trying to do, things did not turn out well. And to the point that I'm trying to get at is that in my own life, I have learned quite a few things, and I've learned some of them better and some of them, not as well. But what happens is we have an expectation, and we learn something, we apply it to us, and this is good. I'm now learning, when I say or do certain things, then certain other things are going to follow. So if I don't fill up my car with gas, eventually it's going to run out of fuel. I know this. You have similar lessons that you have learned. If I do this, this is what will happen. If I don't do this, this is what will happen. And so this is part of what it happens when you look at politics, is you will see certain things and you'll say, wait a minute, last time I saw this, the next thing that happened was not good. I don't want this to happen again. And so we see this politically. We see this in other people. And so we are taking our experience and we are applying it to someone else. And I just want to point out right now that it doesn't take very long to live on God's earth. And then we start actually getting pretty good at this, where we're like, I'm pretty confident that what I'm seeing happening over there right now, that this is what it leads to. It always has in the past. Every time I've looked into it, I have seen this happen. Every time that someone does this sequence of events, here's what's about to happen. Okay, so this is really fascinating, guys. I pulled out my pencil colors. And, well, I went to pull them out, couldn't find them, so I went out to get my second set out in the garage. Not the garage, the RV, and there were just not quite as many there as I had remembered. And so I said, I wonder. So I went and checked the children's collection of pencil colors, and what I found was that my Prismacolors, which is only a handful over here, my Prismacolor, which has been some of my favorite ones, they were all, what was left of them was up in the children's mixture of colored pencils. And then this set, the Faber-Castell set, they were also mixed in with the children's ones. And so I don't know what happened with all of I couldn't find my pencil sharpener. There were a lot of pieces I couldn't find today. It was kind of funny. I was trying to quickly get this together. I was going to draw a little sketch of something, and instead I spent so much time looking for colored pencils. I almost just said, well, forget it. There's no need to do colored pencils, but it was my idea, so I wanted to do it. So here I am. I'm doing it. Okay, so what I wanted to just talk about, and I wanted to not just talk about talking about it, but for instance, when we, it is just as I'm not trying to set us up and say, well, you're wrong. I'm just trying to say, like, if I'm looking at stuff and I see someone, here, I'll use this. If I see someone say 2 plus 2, I have long experience in the world that was going to tell me what that answer is. What is this answer? It is no great mystery to me. I don't have to spend a lot of time. I just look at it and say 2 plus 2 equals 4. And so I can say that with almost no problems. And so we know there's a different kind of math that sometimes happen where, when the Bible, we had someone bring to Jesus 5 loaves plus 2 fish, and we say, what did that equal? Well, it wasn't just 7, it was thousands fed, and at the end, we had 12 baskets full. And so this, to me, I think, this math that God can do, this is what I'm trying to get at, is there is common sense. There's political sense. There is just knowing that these are certain ideas are bad. So like right now in Colorado, we have a government that is trying so hard to protect the children by ensuring that they cannot be corrected. And so if the children have ideas that are not aligned with their creator at all, that are not aligned with who God made them to be, but the children think, and so they have like gender dysphoria and other things, if we try to correct that, then we are the ones who are criminals. And so in the very idea, and so this is like a George Orwell 1984 type thing where the protection agency, the thing that's supposed to protect you, it does not protect you. If it says it protects you, it'll probably kill you. And so we're having that kind of thing that keeps happening. Not just here with us, but around the world, there is something at war with the simple concept that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so this is, to me, one of the things that will easily happen over and over again in my life, is that I will look at what I see around me, the things that I know to be true. So this is where I was heading a minute ago with the whole 2 + 2 = 4, that kind of a thing. So I know certain things are true. I know them to be true. How do I know them to be true? I have proved them over and over. Every time I've tried some things, it has happened. Every single time, it has gone the same way. So for you to tell me, well, be careful, I know to be careful. I've been trying to be careful about certain things all my life. I've been being careful about them, right? Because I've learned that they can be painful. And so when someone comes along and they don't have the same life experience as I do, then I want to teach them that. I want to give them that. I want to say, hey, be very careful. It's a tough world out there. There's certain things that are happening all over the place, and I just want you to be aware, and I want you to be careful. And so if they say, thank you for telling me, that is so helpful, I am so grateful to you, that's really nice. I am grateful when other people appreciate my common sense. I am so grateful when someone else comes along and says, I'm so glad that you told me that. If you hadn't told me that, I'm afraid I would have gone down a wrong path. But you told me, and you helped me. And so this can be anything from, I've worked on cars, and I remember there was a fuel pump that we used to change all the time on old Fords and Chevys that would go into the engine block, and they would have a little, and some of you will remember these, they had a little pump piston that would reach down inside the block, and on top of that little piston, you'd have to be very careful to get that thing pushed up correctly and then get this underneath. And so I remember one of the first times I was doing it, and an older mechanic said, hey, if you'll just get a little bit of bearing grease and put it in on that little pump piston and slide it up in there, it will hold itself up out of your way. But then when the engine turns, it will slide back down and you'll be in good shape. And I said, oh, let's do that. And so I started doing that. And so if you were ever changing an oil pump with me, very, very likely I was going to start telling you about, hey, did you know that if you use a little bit of wheel bearing grease, you can avoid a lot of trouble. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where we can avoid the trouble that is coming because someone has been helping us or tells us what's happening. And we're able to say, okay, thank you. I'm so grateful that you told me this. I didn't know, but now because you've told me, now I know. And so this, when I think about politics, is like a blessing and a curse. You've heard the old thing that people say that when that history, we're going to repeat history. History repeats itself, and so some people say, well, we need to know history, and so it's then I've heard the tongue-in-cheek remark where they say, well, yes, the people who don't know history are bound to repeat it, and the people who do know what history is are going to be like, oh no, we're repeating it and nobody's stopping us. And so which side do you want to be on, the ignorant but happy side, or do you want to see the whole thing falling apart in front of you? And so when when I was thinking about how do we approach this, what do we do with the fact that we actually do have a lot of things going on that are really historical in the way that they, and I'm just going to use America for an example right now. I have 4 children, 4 sons and 2 daughters. I have six children now. And in those 6 children, God has blessed us. I think this is a huge blessing. Having children is a huge blessing. I live in a time when quite a few people seem to have forgotten the blessing of children. So also in my time now, we have people like Elon Musk who are very worried that the world population is shrinking. And they're correct. They're correct. He is correct to be worried that the world population is shrinking. Like, this is, I would say, that is a genuine cause of concern. I am also concerned that the world population is shrinking. And so what do we do about it? Well, and then here, I think, is where a difference comes in. So I look at what the scriptures say, starting in Genesis, and I say, oh, based on this, my job as a human, I am supposed to be fruitful and multiply, to have dominion over the whole earth. This is my job. Well, then, things get kind of bungled up there in the garden. And I'm just going to put in this little footnote right now, is that it is, we live in a time where people don't always just assume or even accept the fact that God created the heavens and the earth. So just simply resting in that fact can be absolutely life-changing, because someone might say, how do you know that? Well, the thing, and here's what I'm going to say about this, is that we have a certain level of truth, observable truth, let me say it that way, evidence, observable evidence, things that we can look at and say, well, this we know because we can see it. These are things like where the stars are year by year. These are things like when you observe a tree growing. So we have like multiple concepts of how things look and how they work. And so, given the observable science, like not far from here, we have Dinosaur Ridge, and on Dinosaur Ridge, we have dinosaur tracks in the sand, except it's stone now, but it looks like a beach. It looks like it used to be a beach, and there's dinosaur tracks that are in the sand there. And so when you look at that, and you're like me, you look at that, you see the tracks, you see the fact that it was some kind of a flood that knocked them out, and you say, this fits with the Bible. The Bible said that God created the heavens and the earth. God said that there was a flood, and so this fits. This must have been Noah's flood that came along and wiped out these dinosaurs. And so for me, I look at that, I'm like, that makes so much sense. I'm so grateful that my Creator gave me an account of the Scriptures to know this. But for someone else who doesn't believe in God, who says, I don't know, we can't know these things, they will come along and they will look at history, not so much history, they will look at science right now and say, well, who can best tell me how this happened? And so somebody will come along and say, well, here's what we think happened. Here's how we think it went down. And as they're describing it, and so this is what somebody did. Somebody actually made a video using, like animation and stuff to show the dinosaurs dying in a flood. And when we were there a couple of years ago, we were looking at all these videos, and as we're looking at them, my boys start looking at these videos too, and they asked me a question. They said, "Oh, is this from the Great Flood?" And so I look at the video, and it sure looks like it was Noah's flood. I know that the people who made the video don't think of it as Noah's flood. But to me, that is what it represents. They can find evidence, and this is what we both have. We can find the evidence that there was a flood. Something happened that killed these dinosaurs dramatically, and so somehow there was water involved with this. And so I looked at it and said, yes, boys, I think that is talking about the flood. And it showed a very dramatic thing of how they came along and they died in the, all these dinosaurs died, and that's how we have all their bones and stuff together. And so, wow, some of these pencils are really broken up since I got them back. So that's me looking at the evidence saying, here's what happened, here's what I think is going on. Someone else can look at the evidence with a different starting point, and they can try to fit it in. It just so happens that I think the biblical perspective of saying the Bible is true, God created the heavens and the earth, that it makes the best use of about all the different evidence that we have out there. Now, someone else can certainly come along and disagree with me. So I'm going to just color over my numbers here that I made and make my new set of grass over here. Okay, so yeah, that one's broken too. This is great. And that one's broken. I might have to sharpen one of these yellows because I'm going to need one of them at least to work a little bit. So I'm not saying that we're all right, that we're just looking at the evidence with different ideas and that we're all right. I am saying all of us, none of us who are alive today were present at the beginning of the world. None of us know exactly what happened at the beginning. And so we have to be cautious in how we present things. And so, for instance, for me, when I look at Scripture and I look at what I see in the Bible, and I look at how the texts of the Scripture, how old they are, how long they've been around, I'm fairly confident in saying, I'm going to put my faith and trust in these texts. I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to roll with it because I think this makes the most sense. And this is, I think, important for you to understand, is that in our Christian life, in our faith, there will be people who say, well, have you considered this evidence? Have you considered that evidence? And every bit of evidence that you can bring to me, everything that you can bring along and say, hey, have you considered this or considered that? Almost every time when I look at it, I look at that and I say, well, it fits into my faith in this way. Here's where it fits. And so, all right, this was beginning to look like a river. I wanted it to be a path, so I think I'll quickly make it a path before it turns into a river before my very eyes. All right, here we go. We'll put in a path. And so, I'm being distracted by my own pencil colors over here, just looking at everything. And I'm not doing the exact best job of just defending my faith. I'm not trying to defend something. What I am trying to do is have a discussion. In our time, in our day, a lot of times what will happen is someone will come along and say, hey, have you considered this evidence? Have you considered that? I am not afraid of looking at evidence. Actually, I've come to enjoy it. When you bring it up and you say, well, what did they discover now? Scientifically, what does this mean? Because there was a time in our history where people came in and they said, did you know that this or that has happened? And they would scare Christians and say, well, I don't think you can believe this. And they would call things science. And the Bible simply said that there would be those who would falsely call things science. And it has happened. We've had a lot of false science stuff going on. And so I just think that it's fair for us as believers to just set it out and say, here's who I am, here's what I believe, and here's why. And so, for instance, when I look at the Scriptures and it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, I believe that. I really believe that God created the heavens and the earth. I believe that not only did he create them, but that he created each of us and he made us unique and beautiful for a purpose. He made us. I'm going to go ahead and put in the element here that I was thinking about when I first started this. I'm just going to come down here, put in a little bit of a Calvary mountain, and put in the cross. And I'm going to go ahead and put the 3 crosses in as a reminder that not only was Christ crucified, but we had the criminals that were crucified with him. So, as a conclusion to all my rambling about the stuff that's been going on these days, here's what I'm doing with my life. And this is what I think the answer is. I don't know that we can have strong enough political response. I don't know if the church can come out en masse and love immigrants enough. I don't know if we can reach out and help all the children who are being preyed upon. I don't know if we can make a big enough movement to eradicate, orphans and that. I don't know if there's a big enough 501c3 that we can ever make to take care of all the orphans and widows and children. And I just don't know. if we can make a big enough program or move to do it. And I actually don't think that we're supposed to be making a big program. I think, and this is what I wanted to share today, is just a very simple thing, is that you and I have been given an opportunity to actually follow Jesus for ourselves. So you have been called to follow Christ. I have been called to follow Christ. I believe the scriptures are true. I believe what the Bible says is true. I expect one day to actually see Jesus. There is this scripture that I absolutely love. Look at this with the, let me see if I can find it here. It says, then he who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. He said to me, write, for these words are faithful and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. So I am not really that interested in trying to make a political platform that is going to solve every problem in America. I'm grateful that there are people who are called to do that. I'm also very aware that I am unable to fully answer every problem of all the different folks that are coming into America or that are refugees from place to place. Every refugee in the world right now, they are desperately in need of something. There is a reason why they left home and are fleeing to go somewhere. And so there are desperate and very real needs out there. And as I was looking and thinking, and I meet with the folks at church, and I think, well, what can we do? Well, there is something that we can do. And so this is why I'm even here today talking about this, is not because I don't think there's any answers. I think the answers are very simple. I think the answer in the end is that I look at what's going on around me, you look at what's going on around you, and you're going to pray and surrender your life to Christ. That is the number one thing that you have the capability of doing in your life, is you're able to fully surrender yourself to God and say, Lord, what do you want me to do? And when God reveals himself to you, when you're saved, and so this is important. I want you to realize this. This is not about just going out and doing something good and then feeling good about it, but the reality is that I need help, you need help. We're in need of Christ. And so as we come to him, it's not that we're going to somehow band together and solve the problem. A minute ago, I started a thought where I was like, Elon Musk, he wants to repopulate the world. Well, he has his idea of how to do it. I think it's very, very unhealthy for those children to not have a father and a mother that are present in their life. I think it's necessary for children to have a father and a mother that are present in their life. And so for me, when I see them, I pray for them, because to me, that's a sad situation to have that much confusion in a family. I really believe that. So I'm grateful for what he is trying to do to serve and help, but at the same time, I'm very concerned. And so I think this is fair to say that when we look at the world and we look at what's happening around us, you might look at parts of what people are doing going, wow, that is awesome. And I mean that like politically. I mean that when you look at the church, different things, you'll see some people doing stuff that you're like, this is awesome. This is what the church ought to be doing. And your neighbor might look at the exact opposite, the other things, the things you're not saying are awesome, and he might think those things are awesome. And so what do we do with that? We will never all be part of the same political party. That's impossible. We will never all be fully persuaded of one style of government or the other. That's also impossible. So what do we do? Well, I tell you what we do. We come to the Alpha and the Omega. We come to Jesus, and we realize that he created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and at the end, he is the one whom we will appear with and spend time with. So we started with him. We're going to end with him. And we don't necessarily have to be concerned and be trying to figure out how to solve all the big problems. We just have to look around us where you are right now. You look at your family, you look at the people that God placed right in front of you, and you say, Lord, what do you want me to do? And this gives me great hope for the nations if I think that we are able to individually surrender our lives to God. We come to the cross and we say, Lord, I'm yours. He saves us. We're born again. We're made new. And then we say, Lord, what do you want me to do now? What is it you have for me? And as we all respond to him, we don't have to have some program on earth or some church organization or some missions program that's big enough to reach everyone. We don't have to have 501c3s multiplying and trying to make everybody on board with our ideas. We need to, however, all of us understand that when we look around at the people around us, every single person you see, from the Pope to the President to the refugees leaving Turkey, every single one of these people needs Jesus. There is no other way to get to heaven. There's no other way to solve this. We've got to have Jesus Christ. Mormons don't need better understanding of their own scriptures and ideas that they have. They need to give that up and surrender to Christ and stop thinking about repopulating some world for themselves. They need to give themselves to Jesus. Muslims need to stop thinking that somehow Allah wants them to die and to kill other people for him. That does not glorify God, and it is a false religion. There's only one way to Jesus. It's not through Allah. It's not through Joseph Smith. It's not through some pope somewhere. It's through Jesus Christ. This is the scripture. And so the beginning and the end of it, the Alpha and the Omega, that Jesus tells us that he is, the Alpha and the Omega, is simply that our Creator made us for a reason and a purpose, and he put us here on earth for that, and we need to be his. So that's my coffee talk today. I went a couple minutes longer than I planned to, but thank you for taking the time to join me. I appreciate that. I just want to be very clear in saying why I do the things that I do. Right now, I step back from doing a coffee talk every week simply because there's other work that's mine to be doing that I need to do. And so when I'm finished with this work that I'm doing, then hopefully I'll be able to come back and do more coffee talks, because I want to do the one where I'm walking through the book that I'm writing. I want to do some of these, and so I'm looking forward to that. But until then, I'm doing one a month with little coffee breaks now and then. And I just want to throw this in there, is that the thing that the world needs is Jesus. The best way we can help proclaim that is we are part of the world, and we need Jesus. So the very best thing we can do is to go and start surrendering our life to Christ daily and saying, Lord, what do you want of me? And that we learn to love the people directly around us. And out of that will flow the change and the revival that's needed to change the course of nations, to change policy. And it will also help then for Christians when they're truly living out the love of Christ, when we come with different ideas and different jobs, and we smash into each other, it will turn out that we actually are able to understand and find unity in Christ. And it will make sense. But only if each one of us is, number one, first, taking ourselves to the cross and saying, Lord, here I am. How do you want to use me? So those are some of my thoughts today. If you have questions or concerns, I would be more than happy to chat and discuss in person. Blessings. I will see you all. I suppose it's next month, but I'll see you.